Let me see here. Oh. Ah, there you are. Come on in. You'll have to excuse me. I'm just finishing up a small report. I know. I'm hoping to run things just a dash better than my predecessor. After all, there are always things for all of us to improve upon, even myself. After all, I take pride in how I treat my students, but do come in. Awful weather we're having today. Is it not the case? Good for class, though. Very good for class. Something about the rain makes me focus. Helps me loosen up a bit. I try and make my office as relaxing an environment as possible. Now, I've never been one to stand on formality, and if you're wondering, yes, the couch there is just as comfy as it looks. So please, make yourself comfortable, lay back, do whatever. Now, tell me, how are you doing today? Oh, whatever makes you comfortable. Fine. Well, if you are a little tired, don't be afraid to relax. Let go for a little bit. I'm not one to stand heavily on formality, and I would hope that you can come to find me a relaxing presence during your time here. And either way, I do hope that this chat, what I have in store for you, will perk us both up somewhat. I have a feeling this whole conversation is going to be very, very enjoyable for the both of us. Absolutely wonderful. Now, I have been trying my darndest to get a good handle on things since I got brought on here. I might be a new member of this institution, and I know I'm taking over mid-term, but now I'm settling in. I want to make the effort, but since this is our first introduction, Professor Netherbrand, but you are more than welcome to call me Zander. I'm your new writing and classical theatre teacher. I haven't had a class with your group yet, but I have been observing a few classes in preparation for the handover. Your old teacher is fine, but I know I could do it a bit better. But again, if I don't quite fit your vibe, you can always submit a class change request at the front desk. I have a thick skin, so no harm done. Nothing a few bumps and bruises could ever stop when it comes to me. Oh, you needn't know much about theatre in order to learn with me, nor writing. Both are decent options to study, and I intend to break things down to their most fundamental level. I know your previous lecturer touched on it a bit with you, but there's nothing I dislike more than substandard education, and I intend to give you and everyone involved in your class a full and intimate knowledge of the arts, as well as how to create, produce, and excel in the creation of your own. Oh, the class is going to be hard. I will admit the class may be a little hard at times, however, I intend to be there each step of the way, ensuring that you have every last tool you need to excel. Yes, I look a touch young for a university professor, but I like to think I'm, what's the word? Qualified by experience. Or at least the university thinks so. And don't worry, I intend to be rather generous with how I grade you and those in the class. It's my intent to look as much at the process as the final result. I know firsthand that art is subjective, and I have absolutely no doubt that your process will be very intriguing. But with that out of the way, how are you finding your classes? I know you haven't had one with me yet, but a small general check-in would do wonders. How are you faring with what you're learning? Believe it or not, I do care. Well, you seem ready to learn. Most definitely, thank you. Oh, touch difficult. Ah, I see. Good in some areas, difficult in others. Ah. Good. Ah, I see. Well, I would agree. You most certainly have potential, and I would say taking the opportunity to excel is always a good one. Most definitely. Even if things have been difficult, I have a feeling that you'll do well with me. After all, it's not as much about what you're being taught as how it's being presented to you. And should you ever need someone to talk to, or a chance to simply relax, I have an open door policy, especially for students that intrigue me. With that in mind, I want to know, or I should say I want to let you know, that I think that you have the potential to truly excel. Even if things are a little bit difficult at times in the learning process. In my mind, you've already demonstrated remarkable adaptability. Bearing the weight of an education while also trying to balance your life and all the other demands is something that is worthy of being remarked upon. Trust me, I for one know how difficult it can be to balance personal, professional and academic corners of your life. I'm your teacher, if someone's going to think of you highly, it damned well better be me. I'm going to be your biggest cheerleader throughout this term and every term you choose to spend with me. I know that coming back to school after any length of time can be a readjustment. I know that personally. I'm no stranger to gap years, would you believe? However, when it comes to changing lecturers, I like to believe that this change, with you and I, is most certainly for the better. And for what it's worth, I'm excited to get to know more about you. Certainly more excited. And the rest of the class, of course. What's important is that you keep your centre with this whole thing. Take things little by little. That's my belief anyway. Do you think you could do that with me? Do you think you could do that for me? Yes. Yes. Wonderful. Well, if not, I know firsthand that life can be unpredictable. Life can take you by surprise, and I hope that you're able to find, no, I encourage you to find enjoyment wherever you can. I know we only just met, but should you need to talk to someone and need a place to feel comfortable, my door is always open, as I said. And I'm a strong believer in if you care, you do not find time. You make time. Don't worry, I think that's fixed. Good. So I should ask, are you looking after yourself? Outside of classes, that is. Getting enough sleep? 8 hours, all of that. Bed at an early time, not too much caffeine. Oh, darling. Now that is a guilty face if ever I saw one. Absolutely adorable. Need I recite to you the benefits of a healthy sleep schedule, or should I save that lecture until Monday so I can tackle all of the class all at once? Something tells me you have a disposition towards not quite getting enough sleep. Yes, I'm somewhat of a hypocrite with that. However, I have more than a right to be concerned. I'm a professor, but that doesn't mean I can't care about the well-being of my students. I know you're an adult, and you are more than capable of looking after yourself. However, I have a duty of care, and I believe my duty of care does not end at the classroom door. Lecturing is only half my job. The other half is your well-being. I know that when it comes to, when it comes to the arts, writing, all of these ephemeral things, inspiration tends to strike at 2 a.m. That's when it does for me, but you still have to find a way to make it manageable. And thus, I'm more than allowed to be concerned. Not sweet, merely wanting to do a better job than the previous professor here. I intend to do better, be better, and ensure that you are able to excel as my student. Though I will make a small note to check in on you with your sleep schedule. Why, thank you, darling. Very sweet of you. Very, very sweet. Speaking of sweet, do you know why I've invited you in here today? Why I asked you to stop by? Student email can be so unreliable, I wasn't sure whether or not I was going to see you, but I'm delighted at your presence all the same. Oh, not knowing is more than fine. A little mystery keeps things interesting. A dramatic pause helps build the tension, good or bad, and what that tension turns into. What crescendo sits at the climax of our scene is forever in flux until the moment it's upon us. Perhaps this steady build just fizzles out into nothing. Or perhaps I choose it to be so. I leave the audience a touch disappointed, yet riled and ready to be stoked again. I like to have a flair for the dramatic, approaching things in such a manner allows me to always stay slightly entertained. Yes, many of us have a love-hate relationship with tension, but we must remember, alongside the bad tension, the heartbeat of the monster as it hunts its oh so innocent prey. The moment of holding your breath before the drop. The steady building of your heartbeat pumping into your ears. Blood circulating as we go. There's also good tension. That of awaiting good news. A victorious result. That of waiting to see someone akin to an old friend. And then, of course, there's always my favourite, romantic tension. Half-whispered words, subtext speaking louder than anything that could be said. Small moments in movements that are akin to entire sonnets. And then that moment where it finally breaks. Down tumbles the walls, and the palpable sense of relief is nigh on overwhelming. And then, of course, there's everything that comes after. Thank you, darling. As I said, I'm taking over midterm, and as a result, I've been gently reviewing the units you've covered up until this point. And while I was doing this work, looking through what had come before, here we are. That was where you caught my attention. Oh, don't worry, darling. You caught my attention in the absolute best way. I try not to have a bias when I work. However, something about your work caught my eye. I don't like to take theoretical work too seriously. Papers, ideas, theorems, you know. However, your work spoke to me somewhat. I never scored highly on written assignments myself when I was a student, though I did tend to ace practical, but, grades aside, something about your work made me take note. Performance aside, your work is straight into, perhaps deliberate, perhaps accidental, but from what you've written so far, your work is strayed into a unique vein that I couldn't help but desire to gaze deeper into. And of course, looking at you now, I see that I was right. No. Actual grading aside, looking at you, I see someone with a powerful imagination and a proclivity for subverting conventional realities into something I find far more enthralling. Yes. Believe it or not, having a powerful imagination is a rare thing in this day and age. Too many people have had their minds numbed by daytime TV and constant and endless scrolling, so either you have recused yourself from the modern world, or your imagination is just that powerful that I can't help to be drawn in by it. Imagine exactly. Imagination and creativity is the backbone of any art. And I'm glad to see it still alive, well, and thriving with a student such as yourself. Indeed. You make it look easy. You make it look far too easy. I thought I was going to have to try and collect myself. Of course, this perspective is in everything. Imagination, creativity, innovation. It's hard to come by, but present everywhere. And I can't help but say that I'm impressed with what I've found with you. Isn't it a common tool? Please, darling, you're being far too modest. Or perhaps my predecessor simply did not understand how to properly praise students that think outside the box. You know how academics can be. I'm a strong believer in positive reinforcement. When you do something well, behave in a manner that is more than befitting of a delightful student such as yourself. I intend to give it full praise and very, very positive reinforcement. How does that sound? I don't think there's a damn thing wrong with letting you know when I think you've truly excelled, gone beyond yourself, or just made me think how good you are. I have a question for you, if you feel like answering it. What's a story you love? A story you love, it can be anything. A movie, a musical, a fairy tale, a show. Anything. I want to know. I'm curious. I always find that the stories we hold closest to us, the ones we love, are more indicative of what we want, what we desire, than near anything we could imagine otherwise. Alice in Wonderland, Hamlet, Outsiders, Avatar, classics one and all. Ancient Netherbrand, a wide collection. Well, isn't that just wonderful? I will have to most certainly take a note. Let me just just make a quick note here. Good. Good. I love a good mix of classics, modern, and whatever there is. Wonderful. I think we all have that story that inspires us, that makes us want to write or create things or just be above and beyond, something that changes the way we look at things. You know? For me, it was gin and cigarettes. It's a play I saw in this dingy little theatre written by this couple when I was a boy. I was barely out of my teens, but I loved it. I bought the tickets for about the same price as a beer. Something about it made me stop. It was the tale of two lovers, from their first meeting to their eventual breakup, to their heartfelt reunion. This man and this woman who met under chance circumstances. The two of them fell deeply in love, and despite how absolutely terrible they were for one another, they stayed together, madly in love, but each one dragging the other down into this beautifully toxic hurricane of partying and celebration, revelry and debauchery. And I couldn't tell which one was worse at any given moment. But all the way through, it was highlighted over and over again just how much they loved one another. How they'd do anything for the other. And even though they were busy setting the world on fire, sacrificing everything, and making their lives overall worse, the love they shared was genuine. Tale of two red flags, yes. Good one. In the end, the woman of the group finally manages to pull herself out, find a better life for herself. But her lover can't. He continues to spiral. In the end, when he's at his lowest, she's managed to fix herself. And after years pass, another chance meeting happens, and the two strike up a conversation again. It starts off fine and innocent at first, but then as the play ends, the lights begin to dim. You see all telltale signs that things might just slip back to the way they were. A drink placed on a table without a coaster. A few extra cigarette butts in the ashtray. A hand that starts on the waist and then steadily moves from lingering downwards, just brushing past the hip, for but a moment too long. And before you know it, you realize these people are meant to be together, because just how terrible they are would never work with anyone else. Wonderful, is it not? Though I am a die-hard romantic through and through. You'll have to learn that about me and learn to put up with it if you want to keep up in my class. But, of course, you didn't come here to listen to your professor be a romantic and speak about such terrible things. Let me check your work here. You'll have to forgive me, I actually printed out copies. Here we are. I've been devouring your past assignments, so I've had a few on hand. Oh, no worries, make yourself comfortable. As I said. Now, I think that you will like our upcoming unit. I think you'll definitely like the upcoming unit. Actually, I believe that it might be something that you could really, really sink your teeth into. I believe so. We're looking at dark play from the 1940s, present in a play called The Maids. It's from a 1940, I believe 49, 48, French dramaturg called 𝓂𝓸𝓾𝓻. It's a classic example of when the cat is away, the mice will most certainly play. Do you like the concept? 𝓂𝓸𝓾𝓻. A good writer. I have to admit I'm not as versed in his works as I'd like to be, but finding translations is oh so difficult. I'd love to explore the concepts with your class, and with you especially, that this work screams. In the tale as old as time, it follows two maids who were the servants of a character known only as the mistress. And what starts off as harmless fun for the two, the maids stealing a spritz of their rich mistress's perfume, role-playing as her while she's out of the house, and even just wearing her clothes while she's not around, eventually leads into the two of them spiraling down this beautiful dark path as they begin to fantasize with one another about ending their mistress's time on this mortal coil, each encouraging the other and enabling their darkest fantasies. I won't spoil the ending though. That's what the classes are for. But if you want to read ahead, here, take my copy. Hold on to it. I do expect it back. Understood? And I must warn you, it gets a touch, spicy at times, this one. Just be sure to approach the material with the mindset of education, and hopefully you can stay on an even kilt up. And don't worry, I'm handing out copies to the rest of the class next week, but I wouldn't be too amiss in saying I wouldn't dislike for you to have a dash of a head start. But it fits the theme I wish to explore this term. Have you ever heard of dark play? It's something that I studied for about 6 months. It has such a tantalizing name, doesn't it? Inherently suggestive. Dark play is one of my favourite things, and I can tell that there's definitely some interest on your end. Fundamentally, dark play is the idea that there is nothing like whispering a secret, a sinful fantasy, or a taboo desire out loud, even if no one hears it. The feeling it gives, the relief, the idea that you are taking a sinful desire, a want and need, and letting it breach the doors of reality just a touch, even in the most mundane way. Intriguing though, isn't it? Don't you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And of course, sometimes it escalates, when put on stage, that is. Sometimes it doesn't. But it's always interesting. Of course, dark play is the rough translation. Sometimes it's difficult to take metaphorical concepts from one language and transform them into something that is comprehensible in another. Zander recommends it. Well, I'm glad you feel comfortable using my first name. Normally it takes students a little while to latch onto that. And too much Mr. Netherbrand, Professor Netherbrand, Sir. I like it. Very casual. Of course, you can refer to me as whatever you want. Just nothing that would get you in trouble during class. Indeed, it is interesting though, the crossover between words that exist in some languages, yet not others. When you're speaking about different concepts, various things, it's always a challenge to translate from one to the other. And when the acting academic community is as wide as it is, you can't help but feel like the most intimate details are lost in translation. Trust me. I've always found Spanish one of the more romantic languages. Well, it is a romantic language. works of 𝔂𝓸𝓾𝓻 would be my absolute favourites. The idea of emotional release, that acting is a place for you to unbottle all of the emotions that you've stuffed down, all the anger, joy, fear, love, lust. It's your chance to take that bottle cap that's inside of you and just let it go. That losing control isn't necessarily a bad thing. That you can do whatever you desire, uninhibited. I actually studied him for 6 months at one of his schools in Barcelona. Some phenomenal work. Screaming, crying, kissing. It's amazing how all of these things feel so distinct when you finally open up and let out all of the emotions that you're not able to fully express as an adult. Indeed. Indeed. It's something I actually hold quite close to me. And I hope that I'll get the opportunity to explore this with you. I think it's something, again, you have the potential to excel with. Indeed. Yes, I kissed. Shocking, I know. Most people see professors as absolutely what? Blank-faced beings that are emotionless and devoid of passion. We've only moved slightly forward from when we were all young children and you used to believe that teachers lived at the school. But no. I'm a little monster with desires of my own. I think we all are. It's not just you, it's both of us. However, I value the opinions of my students quite highly here. My predecessor was less than stellar in allowing students to excel. Meanwhile, where he sees mundanity or things he can't quantify and put in a box, I see people like you. I see you. A diamond in the rough. Something worth special interest. Should you allow it? Of course, I would never proceed in such a way should my student not desire such interest. Perhaps you're merely here to put in your time before shuffling off to somewhere else, but sit by you as we go through some of my notes. Yeah. Let me join you. You don't mind me getting a dash closer, do you? Don't worry, I don't bite, I promise. So, I was looking through some of the work you've already done. I mean, technically I shouldn't be telling you this, but my experience is based in practicality rather than theory. I'm not much of an academic, but I think that might suit you down to the ground. So, I was looking through your past work that we'd already covered. Now, you might not feel too confident with your past works, however, it's not about the grades you've got, it's about the potential that you've demonstrated. Grades don't matter, they're just a funny little number we scribble on things at the end of the day. Here. A+. Congratulations. Just like that. It's so very valuable. Now, I was looking through, and I noticed that you've got basic theory done. Your diagram of Baroque staging is good. It's actually quite interesting. Sorry, I'm not too close, am I? Wonderful. Well, your diagram of Baroque staging is wonderful. A little rough around the edges, but it more than gets the point across, and that's all you really need when you're designing a piece of staging. And of course, this unit was a little bit outside of the usual wheelhouse. Did I mention your previous professor's ineptitude and my own superiority? Yes, good. Oh, you're a delight. But no, the diagram can be a little rough around the edges, maybe here and here. Cross arch needs to be moved a little forward, but I also can't draw for the life of me. Might run a refresher on regular diagrams and staging with everyone, but overall, I find the work quite adorable. No. You've more than covered the basics of stagecraft, positioning, even some lighting work. Though, I do have an idea if you're open to it. It's slightly out there, perhaps a touch forward, but if you would be interested in exploring something a bit more exhilarating, I have a suggestion, and I think you could benefit. How about some look at practicality? I think you'd be a natural in front of a camera or on stage. I could put in a unit later in the year for the class. You most certainly already have the look for it, and at the very least, it'll give you some inspiration moving forward within your own work. Not that you need it, but I do like seeing you excel. Yes. course, you're nervous. Oh, no. No need to be nervous. The audience could be the class, or if you'd prefer a more personal teaching environment, I have no issue with making use of the university's facilities and having the stage occupied by solely you and the audience occupied by solely me. And don't you worry about stage fright, don't you worry about the stage fright, darling. I'm not that frightening, am I? I promise. I'll be a good audience. I'll laugh at all the right times. And I might even, throw in a few cheers and claps. If I really think you've done well. I'll give you all the time you need to prepare. And after all, you needn't worry about getting anything wrong. That's what these lessons are for. And if you feel less confident close to the time, my door is always open and... where is it around here? Where is it? I had something that I thought might work for this. Ah. Here we are. I have a nice little book of contemporary monologues for young people. Everything from Apologia to Goth Boy to Our Day Out to anything that could be attached. So don't worry about the reading list. Also, give Apologia a read. And I have to say this again, don't worry about looking at the bit where it's separated into monologues for boys, monologues for girls. We can just gender bend it, let's be honest. I care not about that. I care more about the content than you fitting the character word for word. After all, we're not staging the whole play. We are simply focusing on your performance abilities. Oh, trust me. I have a very contemporary view of theatre. Just wait. Just wait. I'll show you my online chat blogs, me arguing with other academics, like the contemporary theatre period should be 2001 onwards as opposed from 1970. We turn vicious very quickly. Indeed. I'm not a well-behaved professor. I'm one that wants his students to do well. And if a student can think outside the box, more power to them. And if their professor can't keep up, well then that professor doesn't deserve such an awesome... Look at me, I'm slipping into youthful dialect. Such a incredible student. So, might I get your final opinion? What do you think? Will you be in keeping with my classes, or should I be expecting to have my heart shattered as I receive a transfer request from the front desk on your behalf? Just know, I have a thick skin, and don't mind it in the slightest. Terrible lie. Staying? That is marvellous. It will be a pleasure to have a student like you in my class. An absolute pleasure. I look forward to working with you. I have a feeling that our time together is going to be some of the most memorable. Well then, I think that about wraps up today's meeting. It's been wonderful getting to know you, and you are everything I thought you would be, and far more. You've given me a lot to think about. Very insightful. Wait. Before you go, I have a small proposition for you. Nothing too grandiose, of course, but since you already have that copy of The Maids, and your work is very clearly rather advanced, how would you feel about potentially some extra classes? I meant what I said when I spoke about fostering your talents, and that it would be a waste to not explore them further. It wouldn't be anything too informal. Perhaps an odd coffee whenever you had time, or tea, or you could simply come by my office. And it won't get in the way of anything, and I'd be more than happy to work around you. I'm not quite sure what this is stirring, but having a student such as yourself excites me somewhat. That's wonderful. That is absolutely wonderful. You have most certainly made my day. Well then, you have your student email. Feel free to send me an email whenever you would like to stop by, and of course I'll make sure that everything's all prepared. I'll even bring out my notes from when I was a student. I'm sure there's something that you could pick up from them, even if you have to pick through my messy handwriting. Well then, I now think that's actually everything. I will see you in class on Monday then. Yes. On Monday it is. Well then, I most certainly look forward to it. Well, until the next, I wish you the absolute best, my dear sweet student. I see you sooner than you think. Bye-bye for now.